It's not even subtle racism, is it? And events this week have underlined it. There's not even a pretense that Palestinian life has equal worth, or any worth really, at all, from the likes of our Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, and from other politicians and media outlets. That the conflicts in Ukraine and Gaza, both hideous, are happening at the same time has offered a brutally candid comparison of whose lives matter and whose don't. If describing Gaza, that is, as a conflict is accurate or appropriate given how one-sided it is, a genocidal rampage by Israel is a more accurate way of framing it. None of this, by the way, is to belittle the value of Ukrainian life. We are not guilty of the same sins as our opponents. As I've been clear from the start, Russia launched a war of aggression against Ukraine. It is committing hideous war crimes. Vladimir Putin is a despicable war criminal and he should rot in The Hague for the rest of his life, as far as I'm concerned. The point is, Western leaders have no problems whatsoever in condemning those war crimes. Indeed, a key distinction is that Russia is an official enemy of the West. The West does not arm Russia or legitimise its war crimes. It has imposed sweeping sanctions against Russia. It supports efforts by the International Criminal Court to haul Putin before a court to answer for war crimes. Israel, on the other hand, is backed and armed by Western states, who have justified its genocidal onslaught as self-defence despite pointless hand-wringing. By the way, this is why it is important for us in Western states to speak out so forcefully about Gaza. Because when we condemn Russia's war crimes, we are doing so because morally that is the right thing to do. But it doesn't make any impact. Here in Western states, we have leverage because these war crimes in Gaza are being done because they are facilitated by our own governments. Now, this week, Okhmatit Children's Hospital in Kyiv was bombed by Russia. Let me quote the Ukrainian President Zelensky. He says, one of the most important children's hospitals, not only in Ukraine, but also in Europe. He said it had been saving and restoring the health of thousands of children. Now the hospital, he says, has been damaged by a Russian strike. There are people under the rubble and the exact number of casualties is still unknown. Right now, everyone is helping to clear the rubble, doctors and ordinary people. Russia cannot claim ignorance of where its missiles are flying and must be held fully accountable for all its crimes against people, against children, against humanity in general. It is very important that the world does not remain silent about this now and that everyone sees what Russia is and what it is doing. This is a hideous crime, and yet more evidence of Putin's criminality. It all sounds horribly familiar to anyone, doesn't it, who has been following Israel's genocidal onslaught against Gaza, including, I would say, Russia's own denials. They've denied they're responsible. And they blame, would you believe, the Ukrainian state for placing so-called its civil defence in civilian areas, literally using the same lines as the Israeli state. So they say it's not our fault, and they're suggesting actually it was the Ukrainians instead. We've heard this before, haven't we? Now, if we've been following Gaza, the same pattern, just a lot worse. Not to belittle what's happening in Ukraine, by the way. Every single hospital, every single medical facility in Gaza has been bombed and attacked by Israel. There isn't a single properly functioning hospital left in Gaza. Doctors, nurses and patients have all been slaughtered by the Israeli state. So then in response to this crime, Keir Starmer tweeted, attacking innocent children, the most depraved of actions. We stand with Ukraine against Russian aggression. Our support won't falter. Well, he's absolutely right. Condemnation of Putin is correct. The point he makes here, attacking innocent children, the most depraved of actions, that's a universal law. Attacking innocent children is the most depraved of actions, whoever those children are, and whoever attacks them. It is no less depraved for the Israeli state to slaughter Palestinian children. Indeed, at least 14,000 Palestinian children have been estimated to have been butchered by the Israeli military in the last 9 months. One of the highest slaughters of children in any conflict in modern history, in post-war history. And that's happened in the last few months in such a short space of time as a proportion of the population as well. Very few precedents. Not for a very long time. But I'm afraid to say that figure is likely to be a dramatic underestimate, with 3 medical researchers in the prestigious Lancet magazine suggesting that using conservative figures, around 186,000 Palestinians in total may be killed by Israeli violence. They say it could be a lot higher. And if we apply the proportion of children we know have been killed throughout, that would mean around 70,000 Palestinian kids killed. Now, on its own terms, again, Putin's war on Ukraine is obscene. It's not to belittle the horror to state that Israel's rampage in Gaza is much worse. Not only is there likely to be a much higher number killed in absolute terms in Gaza, Note that Ukraine's pre-war population was 45 million compared to Gaza's 2.3 million, so the proportion slaughtered is much, much higher in Gaza. But Starmer has failed all the way through to condemn Israel for war crimes. There's been pointless hand-wringing, sure, but nothing condemning Israel for its depravity. Now there have been so many incidents of Israel butchering Palestinian kids, but the very day after Starmer rightly condemns pieces of this slaughter, Israel bombs yet another school, a school sheltering Palestinian kids amongst other civilians. Children who were playing football when the missile hit. Let's hear from the BBC about this.
I wanted to bring you the latest news on the Middle East. The news that the Hamas-run health authority in Gaza says at least 29 Palestinians have been killed and dozens more wounded in an Israeli airstrike on a camp for displaced people. Our correspondent Nick Beake is in Jerusalem for us this morning and bring us the latest. Hi, Nick. What have you been able to establish?
Good morning, John. Well, we've heard from 3 eyewitnesses who've been talking to the BBC, and really they describe an horrific scene after this missile hit yesterday. Just to give you the context, this was a school that was being used as a shelter for lots of families who'd actually been moving from other places, trying to seek safety. And this missile hit apparently without any warning whatsoever. Local doctors are saying that at least 29 people have been killed, including women and children. Now, the Israeli army say that they're looking into reports of civilian casualties, but are saying that what happened was they used, in their words, a precision weapon to target someone who they said was a Hamas fighter who'd been involved in the October the 7th attacks. But it's worth noting this is the 4th missile strike on schools in Gaza in the past 4 days. And in the previous 3 cases, the Israeli authorities have been saying they were targeting members of Hamas, whether that's Hamas police officers, Hamas politicians, or Hamas fighters.
Just listen to that. The 4th missile strike in 4 days. Butchering children as well as men and women, justified by single target allegedly involved in 7th October. Well, we know Israel repeatedly justifies strikes, which in some cases have slaughtered over 100 or 200 people in one go based on a single target. Where is the condemnation from Starmer? Where is his denunciation for the depravity of killing children? Those Palestinian kids whose lives are worth no less than the Ukrainian kids. His silence is actually sending a deafening message. Palestinian life doesn't matter. Not to him, not to the British government. The British government officially doesn't believe Palestinian life has the same worth of Ukrainian life or anything close. It's very simple. If you condemn the slaughter of children by an official enemy, but you don't condemn the slaughter of children by an ally you are arming, then you believe that the life of a child is more or less important based on their ethnicity. We have a word for this in the English language. It is called racism. Yes, I am accusing Keir Starmer of racism. He's obviously racist against Palestinians. He doesn't see Palestinian life as having equal worth to the lives of others. Now, Labour may be forced to shift on Israel because of the success of anti-war independents and Greens last week. Well, we have to keep pushing because they're never going to shift their position, these people. They're never going to shift their position because they care about Palestinians. They don't. They will only shift position if people organise and put pressure on them and force them. So that's what we must do. And in the meantime, we must hold these people to account. They're facilitating one of the great crimes of our age, and their racist dehumanisation and belittling of Palestinian life clear for the whole world to see. And they must never, ever, ever be able to get away with that. Please like and subscribe. Do leave your comments, your thoughts. Do subscribe. Do help us keep the show on the road as ever at patreon.com/4. Listen to the podcast. I'll speak to you soon.